The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the courthouse, casting long, dignified shadows across the polished mahogany benches. There was a unique energy in the air, a blend of nervous anticipation, and the quiet hum of a place where truth was the only currency that mattered. This was the courtroom of Judge Judy, a woman whose reputation for sharp wit and unwavering justice preceded her. The court officer stood tall, his voice resonating through the room as he called the assembly to order. Everyone rose in a unified motion of respect as the judge took her seat. This was the beginning of case number 3023, the matter of Swarn versus Mack. DeJuan Swarn stood on one side, his face etched with the frustration of a man who felt betrayed by someone he once loved. Across from him was Malina Mack, his former girlfriend of more than 3 years. They had shared a life, a home, and the daily rhythms of raising her 2 daughters. Now, they were separated by a wooden podium and a deep sense of resentment. The judge looked over the filings, her eyes piercing through the legal jargon to the human story beneath. Mr. Swarn was suing for $3,000, claiming Miss Mack had used his mobile cash application to steal his savings. Miss Mack, in turn, denied everything and brought a counterclaim for veterinary bills, alleging that DeJuan had injured her beloved cat. The judge began by unraveling the timeline of their relationship. They had lived together for approximately 3 years, or perhaps a little over that duration, in her apartment. The household included her 2 children, her 2 daughters who had grown accustomed to DeJuan's presence. The conflict had reached its peak around March 9th of the year 2023. DeJuan explained that around March 6th, he had reached out to Malina via a social media messaging platform because he did not have a working telephone at the time. He had been using a phone provided by her, but after their final breakup a week prior, he was left without a device and without access to his financial accounts. Technically, the phone belonged to Miss Mack, but DeJuan's entire financial life was tied to the cash application installed on it. He needed to know his balance so he could put gasoline in his car and get to work. He messaged her, asking for the details. She replied that she could not access the account without a confirmation code. DeJuan, trusting in their long history despite the recent bitterness, provided her with the code. He believed she might have forgotten the previous one or simply needed a fresh one to help him. In doing so, he unintentionally gave her the power to move his money. On March 9th, $3,000 vanished from his account. It was not a small sum. It was exactly $3,000. The judge requested to see the transaction records. As she examined the documents, she noticed a name associated with the transfer, Janae Horns. When asked, Miss Mack admitted she had known Miss Horns for 4 or 5 years. She claimed that DeJuan and Janae did not get along and that she rarely invited a friend over because of the friction between them. The judge leaned forward, her expression shifting to one of deep skepticism. She spoke of her 40 years on the planet and her long tenure in the business of finding the truth. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, she said, it is a duck. She challenged Miss Mack to explain how $3,000 ended up with her close friend during the very window of time when the breakup was at its messiest. Miss Mack tried to claim that DeJuan had sent the money himself as an apology, a story that fell hollow in the face of their mutual dislike for the recipient. The judge made it clear that she did not care for dishonesty. Then, the focus shifted to the cat. Mr. Swarn admitted that an incident had occurred in late February. He was home alone, preparing for a video conference call for work. He had been in the shower and, upon hearing his phone ring, he jumped out in a hurry. The bathroom was small, and he was dripping wet. As he rushed toward the room, he slipped, his knee went forward, his back went back, and in that chaotic moment of gravity taking over, he fell on the cat. He insisted it was an accident. He spoke with genuine emotion about how he would never intentionally hurt an animal, knowing how much the cat meant to Malina and her daughters. He described seeing blood in the cat's eye later and immediately telling Malina that something was wrong. He had even sent her $500 on March 8th to help with the bills, a sum that the judge noted more than covered the actual veterinary costs. The judge realized that while the cat was truly injured, DeJuan had already taken responsibility for his accidental clumsiness. The judgment was clear. She ruled in favor of the plaintiff for $3,000. Justice had been served for stolen funds, and the matter of the cat was deemed settled by his prior payment. The courtroom then transitioned to case number 3031, involving Christopher Brandenburg, Victoria McLaughlin, and Carter Irwin Jr. This case was a tangled web of motorcycles and a puppy. The plaintiffs were suing for $10,000, claiming that Mr. Irwin had stolen a 2001 Harley-Davidson Heritage motorcycle. Mr. Irwin countered with his own claim of $10,000, alleging that his property, specifically a concentrated marijuana extract known as shatter and a French bulldog, had been taken from him. The judge spent time untangling the messy verbal agreements. Mr. Brandenburg explained that they had made a deal for a $9,000 Harley-Davidson shovelhead. He had even let Mr. Irwin borrow his wife's van to travel between Washington and Oregon. Later, when the van was returned, he lent Mr. Irwin the 2001 Harley-Davidson Heritage. However, the payments never arrived as promised. Mr. Irwin claimed he had paid in product, specifically $7,000 worth of shatter and $1,500 in cash. When the judge asked for proof of the cash payment, such as a bank withdrawal or a receipt, Mr. Irwin had nothing to offer. He spoke of jars of extracts and photographs, but the judge was interested only in the legality of the transaction and the lack of written contracts. She dismissed his claims of payment as ridiculous. The heart of the human drama, however, lay with the dog. It was an 8.5-month-old French bulldog. Miss McLaughlin explained that they had intended for Mr. Irwin to be a guardian home for the puppy. The agreement was that he would care for the dog until it was old enough to be bred, at which point he would own the dog free and clear. However, they soon discovered that Mr. Irwin's living situation was not suitable. He did not own his home, and there was no fenced yard as promised. They had gone to his house and reclaimed the dog. Mr. Irwin wanted the dog back, but the judge was firm. She looked at the situation and saw a beautiful creature being used as a pawn for financial gain. She expressed her outrage that animals were being bred as hobby sports and discarded when they were no longer profitable. She told the parties that the dog had already been placed in a different home, one where it could hopefully live a normal, pleasant life away from their disputes. The judge issued her final ruling. The motorcycle was to be returned to the plaintiffs. She set a specific time and place for the transfer, high noon on the 15th of the month at the local police station in Salem. The case was over. As the parties left the room, the judge reflected on the sadness of people using animals for profit. She noted that she learned something new every day, even at her age, but the exploitation of pets remained a point of deep concern. The court adjourned, leaving behind the echoes of lessons learned about honesty, responsibility, and the true value of companions we keep.